In today's Clash Royale video, we will go over the best deck for the Mega Deck Challenge to win all the awesome rewards, and I'm gonna go through the best advices how to win this challenge. If you guys don't want to miss any challenge videos in the future and also want to know the best decks for the upcoming challenges, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Also, make sure to use Create a Good Mod in the shop. I really appreciate any support for you guys. And I would say let's directly jump into the deck, and I'm gonna explain you why this deck is the best deck for the Mega Deck Challenge. So as you guys can see, the challenge is not out yet when I'm recording because tomorrow I'm actually not at home, so I'm already explaining you the deck from now or like today. I'm also gonna show you the deck on the side here, like the full 16 card deck, and kind of going over the deck and kind of explaining why I think this deck is the best deck in Clash Royale for the Mega Deck Challenge. Honestly, kind of sad to see there's no in-game mode to play in Friendly Bets the Mega Deck Challenge, because I think it's a quite interesting mode, one of my favorite modes to play. But yeah, so this is like my deck I want to show you, so you can just play it. If you guys want to know a bit more, watch until the end. So this are like kind of, I mixed this on my battle deck to kind of show you the win conditions where I decided, the spells, support units, and so on. So these are like kind of my win condition deck. We got the Skeleton King. You could also use the Electric Giant. This is the exactly same deck I used like almost 6 months ago. I think around Christmas there was also a Mega Deck Challenge coming. So I used this deck with Electro Giant instead of Skeleton King. I don't really know what is better. Honestly, you can use every single card in this mode. I honestly prefer Skeleton King now because it's just so good, but you can also use E-Giant. Even after nerf, I still think it's so good, especially because you always need to kind of see your opponent has a slower cycle because of the 16 card cycle. I mean, most of the players don't have like buildings or like 3 or 4 buildings in the deck, so Electro Giant is still one of the best cards, especially when your opponent doesn't have a building. But if you also want to go for a more defensive card, kind of supportive cards, especially if the Skeleton Barrel, Goblin Barrel combination gets a ton of like souls for the Skeleton King, could also go for the Skeleton King Skeleton Barrel. Just I really like the combination with Goblin Barrel because of the spell power. You can always outcycle spells with this deck when your opponent, I mean, he needs a ton of cards to cycle back to your spells, right? So Skeleton Barrel, Goblin Barrel, I really like it. Magic Archer is also so good, and it's so hard for the opponent to keep track of your cycle, because the cycle is so slow, as I said, because you need to cycle 15 cards. Also, the Miner, just to get 1% chip damage, cleaning up all the Musketeers, cleaning all all the stuffs. And I think the Miner is just like the most solid win condition in general in this Mega Deck Challenge. I need to say before, the Mega Deck Challenge isn't that as hard as you might think. So I also think if you're like a really okay player, like at 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 trophies, I still think you can win with almost any deck as long as you play well. But yeah, this is just generally like my advice for this challenge. Also, Magic Archer, as I said, is really good because you can snipe troops. You are like able to have like great defensive. You can bait out fireballs. So generally, these are my top 5 win conditions from the 16 cards. Now we're going over some bait cards, kind of supportive, cheap troops in this deck, where we want to like take a look, or your look, on these 3 cards. We have the Bats, we have the Goblin Gang, and we have the Ice Golem. For sure, Bats, just really good. One of the best cards in Clash Royale when your opponent doesn't have a spell. So even if they're gonna use the Snowball, the Zap on it, you got the Goblin Ball, you got the Skeleton Ball, and also Bats, just really good to support your Skeleton King. Then we have the Goblin Gang, which is kind of a spot where I'm not really sure. I just like Goblin Gang in general. I still think it's a really solid card, but maybe Skeleton Army or Guards are better. So this is like kind of what I think. So Skeleton Army for sure better for souls, for the Skeleton King better support card, but Guards would be just genuinely the better choice, or like more safer choice on defense. But Goblin Gang just still really good, solid single target damage, and if your opponent is dropping something like a Graveyard, it really helps cleaning that up. So these are like the 2 options which I would say for the Goblin Gang, which is like I would say the thing which you can, like, the most controversial part of the deck. Then the Ice Golem, I just like the Ice Golem for cheap cards. I mean, you kind of need cheap cards because I really want to cycle going the 16 card deck in the 60 card deck. So having the Ice Golem to kite troops for 2 elixir, just having solid HP on defense, I'm thinking people might use similar decks than mine. So you have the Ice Golem also against Bats to block stuff, and just for 2 elixir you can always cycle cards, because in some stations I feel like this was like a kind of problem, or it's like always a problem for some people in the Mega Deck Challenge. People don't know what to play. They have like a really cheap, really expensive deck, and they don't really have options to cycle. Some cheaper cards aren't really as great to cycle as an Ice Golem. You can always go in for an Ice Golem deck, and you don't do anything wrong. You don't really need to save it in most of the sequences, because yeah, even if your Ice Golem is out, your opponent is going for E-Webs, at example at the bridge or mini packer, you still have so many other troops to kite, to distract. So Ice Golem just really good on defense, still one of the most underrated cards in Clash Royale, and just really good to cycle in general. Now we're going over some defensive cards / supportive cards for your Skeleton King, and generally support cards. So we have the Valkyrie, which is still one of the best cards in Clash Royale. You could also sub out the Valkyrie for Ghost, so these are kind of the substitutions you could do. But I generally prefer Valkyrie because it's still one of the best defensive cards against all the win conditions, against Royale, Graveyard. Really, really good. Then we got the Sparky, which is really solid against Electro Giants, against Beatdown decks in general. And yeah, in some situations you could even go for a Witch in the back. An example, I'm also going like soon over the Witch, where I have the Witch in the deck, and your opponent is going to drop the Rocket, and then you have the Sparky. And I don't really think most people are going to play Rocket. And yeah, so Sparky I think is just really, really annoying. Just baiting a ton of Elixir out, and also Skelly King Sparky is an underrated combo with the Baby Dragon, like as example, as a support. It's really good. We got the Mini Packer, also kind of similar to the Valkyrie. We got the Valkyrie as a splash against all the Warrior decks, against all the, yeah, bait decks, and then we got the Mini Pack as a like really solid single target damage. So even if your opponent has cards against the Sparky, really, really good cards. We have the Mini Pack, and also like imagine the Skeleton King or Electro Giant if you want to play it instead of the Skeleton King. Mini Packer Sparky push is just so good, and Mini Packer, yeah, just one of the best single target damage dealer. Then we got the Baby Dragon, which I feel like is one of the most solid cards in general. It doesn't really die to any type of spells besides Rocket, so just having a really solid card in your deck which is really spell resistant is really, really helpful. We also got, as you guys can see here, the Flying Machine. I just really like having a Flying Machine kind of in a similar deck as the Magic Archer, kind of applying or like having Fireball bait in your deck. So normally you want to bait out of fire with the Flying Machine, and then, for example, getting a Fireball, getting a Magic Archer line up to the tower, and getting the final chip damage you want to do. So this is kind of great. This is what I like. And Witch is one of the best cards in Clash Royale. Like, I just feel like Witch is so good. Like, Poison doesn't really do too well. I mean, if your opponent's going for a Poison and Lock, it's a -1 Elixir trade, and you use Poison and Lock, and you can punish them with Goblin Brawl plus minus, Skeleton Player plus Goblin Brawl, or Magic Archer, Goblin Brawl, and or Skelly Barrel. So, Witch just, I mean, generally, most of the time the Witch won't get too much value, but it's still helpful against some Packer decks, as example, sometimes when you don't have your Ice Scream or Goblin Gang in your cycle, but generally just baits out so much Elixir to gain Elixir advantage and just punish them with huge beatdown pushes. So now we're going over the most important choice of the deck. So this is a kind of open choice for you guys. This is kind of sub in, sub out cards, whatever you face. If you feel like you're facing a ton of, I mean, Graveyard, use a Poison instead. If you face a ton of Sparkies, use a Rocket instead. But generally, I think that's the most solid spell. Fireball Arrows, just a really generally good combination to kill most of the troops. Fireball Arrows kills Electro Dragons, Fireball Arrows kills Witches, Fireball Arrows kills Archer Queens. So Fireball Arrows, just a really solid combination. Also having something against your Fireball, I just think it's one of the best spells, especially in this Mega Deck challenge. You could also use a Poison instead, but yeah, this is the thing you can do. You can kind of just sub in and sub out cards. Then we got a Snowball. I just like having Miner plus Snowball also. Knockback troops on defense. I just think it's really good. Also supportive as a Magic Archer, right? Pulling, like, playing the Snowball that the troop goes in line and the Magic Archer connects the tower. Really, really helpful. We also got the Barbarian Ball just to clean up troops. Just generally really good. Also another card which you can apply pressure, keep your cycle going, run on lock, because if you play your Barbarian Ball, you're forcing something out from the opponent and you can play another card. So generally, these are my top 16 cards for this Mega Deck Challenge deck. Let me know in the comment section which Mega Deck Challenge Challenge deck you're playing, and also make sure to subscribe to the channel. I'm also doing some challenge about this Mega Deck Challenge. This will be really exciting. Stay tuned for the next couple of days doing that with different decks, like maybe with just spells, just legendary. So stay tuned for that, and I would say I'm out. Thanks for watching, and goodbye, guys.